सलाम पाकिस्तान। मैं हूं इफ्तिखार फिरदौस और आप देख रहे हैं बॉर्डर टॉक्स। इस वक्त की सबसे अहम खबर जो आलमी मंजरनामे पर एक बाकायदा एक डिस्कशन के लिए जो है वो खुल चुकी है और हर जगह इसी एक खबर की बात हो रही है, और वो है मक्का एग्रीमेंट जो पाकिस्तान, तुर्की और सऊदी अरब के दरमियान में एक डिफेंस कॉपरेशन या डिफेंस पैक्ट की तर्ज पर जो है वो सामने आया है। क्या होंगे इसके मुहर्रिकात आगे, जो आलमी मंजरनामा है उसमें ये डिफेंस पैक्ट क्या अहमियत रखता है और कौन से अवामिल थे जिसकी वजह से अब ज़रूरत आई कि ये डिफेंस पैक्ट होना चाहिए। तुर्की से एक पॉइंट ऑफ पर्सपेक्टिव जो है वो लेते हैं कि तुर्की के अंदर इस टाइम पर क्या है। हमें ज्वाइन किया है सीनियर सहाफ़ी और तज्ज़ियाकार रसूल सरदार साहब ने। थैंक यू वेरी मच मिस्टर रसूल फॉर ज्वाइनिंग अस। There's an important discussion that's going on a global level, as well as social media is literally flooded with different analysts putting their suggestions in the forefront as to what might have prompted this defense agreement between Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Pakistan. And obviously, each country has its own perspective, and there's been official statements as well. But Mr. Rasool, from a Turkish perspective, exactly what does this entail to?
Well, I think October 7th of 2023 has changed the strategic environment in the region. So now we have an environment that is much more fragile, and also the delicacies across the region are just tremendous, and also is very much unpredictable. And so the developments after October 7th have changed the strategic environment, and the regional countries gradually or increasingly have been forced somehow to look to each other, not just outside powers, for their security. So Israel's ongoing war on Gaza, and then its attacks on several countries in the region is threatening language against almost any individual countries in the region. And so somehow what you're seeing is that the regional countries are in search of creating the blocks, the regional alliances to deal with these threats, the emerging threats, and the unpredictability, geopolitical unpredictabilities across the region. So it is mostly about the collective deterrence, because now the countries are convinced that individually none of them are going to be able to somehow prevent or to avoid these threats. That's why these countries, particularly the big three in the region, Pakistan, Turkey, and Saudi Arabia, coming together, joining their forces and joining their capabilities to achieve a regional deterrence. So it was mostly about the new geopolitical environment that has forced these countries into this position.
So the way that you're explaining it, that obviously there is a lot of changes in the geopolitical environment as well as the security threats that are illuminating from different parts of the globe, but particularly with the Israeli expansion as well as the war in Iran. But how does, like, three different elements, three different countries coming together with each different part, and what's been assessed so far, we don't have any official statements on that as well, is that the Turkish part is mostly related to the military industrial complex. And obviously Turkey is one of the countries that is far ahead in terms of technology. In terms of Turkey's contribution to this bloc, what is your perspective on that? How do you see that contribution coming in?
Well, look, the reason that this is being called as three big and the Mecca alliance among these three big is that each of the countries that are now in these alliances, they have their own capabilities. So for the Turkish part, one of the things is that Turkey already has NATO's second largest army and very advanced and sophisticated drone technology. Indeed, if you just regard the fact that more than 65% of the drone sales globally is from Turkey. So you will see that it's almost a monopoly in the global market when it comes to the drones and the drone technology. And beside that, so Turkey also has one of the world's fastest growing defense industry. And what we are talking about is not only about the drones. I think there is one misleading. Of course, Turkey's Bayraktar drones are extremely famous, but so Turkey is now producing the helicopters, producing the tanks, and there are the facilities, tons of the facilities, particularly when it comes to the ammunition. And indeed, in many parts of the world where there is a lack of the ammunition, so Turkey has been one of the main suppliers. So here, Turkey is going to come up, particularly with its sophisticated drone technology and also its very much robust defense industry into this game. But it's not only about that. Another fact is that, so in any way, the defense industry without the economical, financial resources cannot move forward. And when it comes to Turkey, despite the economic challenges that the country is facing, despite the chronic high inflation and so on, but Turkey is also one of the strongest manufacturing house or manufacturing hub in the region. Just remember last year in 2025, the total export figure of Turkey has exceeded $257 billion. And that is not coming from the gas or the oil, it's pure production. So you will see the Turkish products almost across the whole globe. And in that sense, so the economic productivity and also the advanced industry, the defense industry is what Turkey is going to put at the table. And also here, another third factor is the geography of the country, the location of the country. So in that sense, Saudi Arabia is an economic powerhouse. Pakistan is the only Muslim nation, Muslim majority nation with a nuclear capability. And Turkey having the second largest army in the NATO, a robust defense industry, and of course the very advanced drone technologies and with its manufacturing capacity.
सो वील गो टेक ए शॉर्ट लिटिल ब्रेक, लेकिन मैं नाजरीन को जो है वो समझाते हूँ कि रसूल सरदार साहब ने जो सवाल उनसे पूछे गए थे, एक पर्टिकुलर खुसूसी तौर पर ये सवाल था कि इस एग्रीमेंट की अभी ज़रूरत जो है वो क्या थी, और उन्होंने दो तरफ जो है वो इशारा जो है वो किया है। एक ये कि जो इजरायली एक्सपेंशन है और जो हम देख रहे हैं मिडल ईस्ट में इसराइल जो करने की कोशिश कर रहा है, उसके लिए बहुत ज़रूरी था कि ये तीनों ममालिक जो है वो साथ में हाथ जोड़ें, और जिस तरह का एग्रीमेंट जो है वो सामने आया है डिफेंस के हवाले से। लेकिन उसमें दूसरा इम्पॉर्टेंट फैक्टर उन्होंने कहा कि जो ईरान की जंग थी और उसमें जो नेगोशिएशन और बाद में किसी नतीजे पर जो है एक सीज़ फायर और फिर दोबारा जंग का आगाज़, उसने ख़ित्ते को मजमूई तौर पर जो है अनस्टेबल जो है वो कर दिया है, और उसके जो मुहर्रिकात हैं उसको इस तरह तब्दील कर दिया है कि जिसमें अब ज़रूरत जो है वो पेश आई कि जो तीन बड़े ममालिक हैं जिनके अपने अपने ख़ास एस्पेक्ट्स हैं, खुसूसी तौर पर तुर्की का उन्होंने ज़िक्र किया क्योंकि वो टर्की से बात कर रहे हैं कि एक तो नेटो के अंदर जो दूसरी सबसे बड़ी फ़ौज है वो तुर्की की है, और इम्पॉर्टेंटली जो तुर्की की ड्रोन टेक्नोलॉजी है वो सबसे फास्टेस्ट ग्रोइंग है। और सऊदी अरब के हवाले से उन्होंने कहा कि ऑब्वियसली वो एक मेजर इकोनॉमिक पावर है और पाकिस्तान जो है वो मुस्लिम ममालिक का वाहिद न्यूक्लियर पावर है, इसलिए इन हालात के अंदर इन तीनों का आना, इकट्ठे होना डिफेंस कोऑपरेशन के लिए ये नागज़ीर हो चुका है। प्रोग्राम के दूसरे हिस्से में इनसे जो है वो सवाल पूछेंगे कि जो इन्होंने इसराइल का जिक्र किया और ख़ुसूसी तौर पर मशरिक़ वस्ता के हालात के बारे में कि वहाँ पर अब क्या सिचुएशन जो है वो डेवलप होते हुए नज़र आती है। हमारे साथ रहिएगा। Welcome back, Nazareen. So, Mr. Rasool, we were talking about the situation, the way that it is developing, even in the aftermath of this defense cooperation agreement that we see. Yesterday, we've seen a renewed sort of an escalation on the Syrian border as well. And I want to ask for your comment related to, because in the Makkah agreement, akin to the NATO agreements clause 5, it says that an attack against one signatory will be considered to be an attack against all. There's been various clarifications that have been coming in that this is not something that is a presupposed sort of an agreement in which there is a task for a preemptive war strategy. Rather, it is a defensive war strategy that has actually been put forward. But when we see the kind of escalation that is taking place, particularly with respect to the Middle East, what do you think that in terms of its foundational clause, how soon do we see this act into play? And secondly, whether the expectations from it would be the way that the discussion is ongoing right now?
Well, here, I think the main vulnerability of the Mecca alliance is that it has never been tested yet because it has been just a couple of days that the agreement was signed between the three countries. And indeed, the commitment is binding. It's quite a bold and assertive commitment. So, in Article 5 of the NATO, which, by the way, Turkey is a NATO member. So, and we Turks are used to that concept of the Article 5 because again and again in Turkey that will be discussed as Turkey, as the country has been a NATO member since 1952. So the Article 5 says an attack on one member of the alliance is an attack on all, and that comes with the responsibility of the collective response. So here we're seeing the main clause of the agreement. That is the crux of the agreement. That is the backbone of the agreement that was signed between Islamabad, Riyadh, and Ankara, that if one of them is attacked, so it's going to be considered as an attack on all. So here, what is going to define the success of this agreement is not what the agreement says on the paper. It is what happens when one of them is attacked, either by a state or non-state actors in the region. And if there are attacks directly on the soil of one of the members, will the other two or will the others comes to its defense or not? So the answer to this question is going to determine whether this agreement becomes the foundation of a genuine regional security architecture, or it remains, at least for now, just as a powerful political declaration. So, another flaw, of course, for now at least, the mechanism is still not very much
Very clear.
detailed. What is going to be the secretariat, how they're going to respond, whether there are going to be ministerial level meetings on regular basis. And also the details of that, the technical details are still not there. However, one thing that I could say, even when the NATO was founded, right after the Second World War, it took quite years and in some cases decades to be well defined. So as long as the seriousness and the sincerity of Islamabad, Ankara, and Riyadh is in place, by the time there will be several other mechanisms established to simply support the same the core mechanism. So for such alliances, particularly the regional blocs, they do not get their final shape and form overnight.
Just one last question before I actually leave you. There's a lot of discussion as to Egypt being pulled to be a part of this, and they did not become part of it as yet. What is the speculation in relation to that? How do you see this pan out?
Well, indeed. So the general expectation, just remember, after 27th of February, when the United States and Israel once again started to attacks, to initiate attacks on Iran, immediately what we have seen was the Turkish, Pakistani, Saudi, and Egyptian foreign ministers coming together and having a meeting in Riyadh. And that was the first official meeting of these four big countries in the region, trying to somehow come up with a regional ownership or a regional response for the regional crisis. And then these kind of meetings have been repeated in Islamabad, in Ankara, and then in Cairo. So in each of these meetings, even the last one, just one day before the signing of this agreement in Mecca. So in Oman, in the capital of Jordan, once we have seen the Pakistani, Turkish, and Egyptian and Saudi foreign ministers meeting. So and there was expectation that Egypt is going to be a part of that. I think here there are two reasons that perhaps that did not happen. Uh, I suppose Riyadh has some concerns about Egypt's participation in the initial phase because of the divergence of the policies across the region. That was one of the reasons. And second, perhaps there was a little bit of the reluctancy from Egypt as well regarding its relations with Abu Dhabi. However, still, both Cairo and also Ankara are again and again expressing one fact that the alliance is not so this alliance between the three countries is not going to be staying limited.
Hmm.
So it's open to the friendly countries in the
Anybody who
region.
wants to
And
join.
one thing that I know that Ankara is extremely keen to see Cairo also in this alliance. If that
Agreed.
happens, this is going to be quite an organic regional bloc, not just an alliance, but also a regional bloc. So Pakistan, a nuclear powered Pakistan with almost 250 million people, and then a Saudi Arabia with its tremendous financial resources, and then Egypt with its extremely important geopolitical location and quite more than 120 million people, and then a Turkey with being the second largest member of the NATO
Hmm.
and its advanced defense industry, then this is perhaps going to be, if that happens, is going to be a pivotal moment for the region. Indeed, for many, it will be the agreement of the century.
थैंक यू वेरी मच फॉर योर टाइम रसूल. नाज़रीन, गुफ्तगू आपने मेहमान की जो है वो सुनी. अगर उसको मैं सम अप करूँ दूसरे पोर्शन को, उसके अंदर उन्होंने कहा कि जो एग्रीमेंट के बेशतर तरीक़ाकार है, जिसके अंदर नेटो का एक क्लॉज़ है, क्लॉज़ 5, जिसके अंदर ये कहा जाता है कि अगर किसी एक मुल्क पर जो है वो हमला होता है तो वो बाकियों पर भी हमला तसव्वुर होगा. एंड ऑब्वियसली मक्का एग्रीमेंट का भी यही जो है एक मेन पॉइंट है जो डिस्कशन के लिए है. लेकिन जो हमारे एक्सपर्ट ने कहा और जो तुर्की का एक वर्जन हमें बता रहे थे कि वहाँ पर क्या सोच है, वहाँ पर यही सोच है कि जो इन एग्रीमेंट्स को, एक तो ये पेपर पर है इस टाइम पर, लेकिन उसकी एक्चुअल जो है इम्प्लीमेंटेशन, उसमें जो है वो टाइम भी लगेगा. और मोर इम्पॉर्टेंटली उसके अंदर जो सबसे इम्पॉर्टेंट चीज़ है वो ये है कि प्रोसेसेस को डेवलप होते हुए भी एक मैकेनिज़्म बनते हुए, जिस तरह बाकी एग्रीमेंट्स दुनिया में हुए हैं, उनको कहीं ना कहीं जो है ऑलमोस्ट 10-10 साल जो है वो गुजर गए ताकि वो उसकी एक इम्प्लीमेंटेबल फॉर्म जो है वो नज़र आए. इस तरह इस एग्रीमेंट को भी देखना पड़ेगा कि कितनी जल्दी जो है वो मिनिस्ट्रियल लेवल की मीटिंग्स और जो बाकी टेंटिकल्स हैं स्टेट के, वो कैसे एक दूसरे के साथ जुड़ते हैं, उसको भी देखना पड़ेगा. लेकिन मोर इम्पॉर्टेंटली फ्रॉम अ टर्किश पर्सपेक्टिव वो ये भी कह रहे थे कि बहुत कोशिश की गई और एग्रीमेंट से एक दिन पहले भी कोशिश की गई कि इजिप्ट जो है वो इसका हिस्सा बने, ताकि जो रेड सी का एरिया है उसके ऊपर भी एक रीजनल ब्लॉक जो है वो बनाया जाए. प्रोग्राम में अभी के लिए इतना ही. देखते रहिएगा बॉर्डर टॉक्स.